5, the birthday bash. I got used to the way Fudge looked up without his top front teeth. He looked like he was a very small first grader. Dr. Brown, our dentist, said he'd have to wait until he was 6 or 7 to get his grown-up teeth. I started calling him Fang because where he smiles, all you can see is the top 2 sides teeth next to the big space, so it looks like he has fangs. My mother didn't like that. I want you to stop calling him Fang, she told me. What should I call him? I asked. Farley Drexel? Just plain Fudge will be fine, my mother said. What's wrong with Farley Drexel? I asked. How come you named him that if you didn't like it? I like it fine, my mother said, but right now we are calling him Fudge, not Farley, not Drexel, and not Fang. What's wrong with Fang? I asked. I think it sounds neat. Fang is an insult. Oh, come on, Mom. Doesn't even know what Fang is. But I know, Peter, and I don't like it. Okay. I promise I never call my brother Fang again, but secretly, whenever I look at him, I think my brother Fang Hatcher. Nobody can stop me from thinking. My mind is my own. Fudge is going to be 3 years old, my mother said. He should have a birthday party with some of his friends. He plays with 3 other little kids who live in our building. They're Jenny, Ralph, and Sam. My mother invited them to Fudge's party. Grandma said she'd come over and help. My father couldn't make it. He had Saturday business appointments. I wanted to go get to Jimmy Fargo's, but my mother said she needed me to supervise the games. The kids were invited from 1 to 2:30. That was only an hour and a half, my mother reminded me. It's not that bad, is it, Peter? I don't know yet, I told her. Ask me later. The kitchen table was set up for the party. The cloth napkins and the paper plates and the cups and all matched. They had pictures of Superman on them. Right before the time, Grandma tried to change Fudge into his new suit, but he screamed his head off about it. No suit, no, no. My mother tried to reason with him. It's your birthday, Fudgy. All your friends are coming. You want to look like a big boy, don't you? While she was talking to him, she managed to get him into a shirt and a pants, but he wouldn't let her put on the shoes. He kicked them and carried on until Mother and Grandmother were both black and blue. Finally, they decided as long as he was in a suit, his feet didn't matter. So he wore his old bedroom slippers. Ralphie arrived first. He was really fat, and he isn't even 4 years old. He doesn't say much either. He grunts, grabs a lot, though. Usually his mouth is stuffed full of something. So the first thing Ralphie did was wander into the kitchen. He looked around for something to eat, but Grandma was guarding the place. She kept telling him, no, must wait until the other children come. Jenny arrived next. She was wearing a little white gloves and party shoes. She even carried a pocketbook. Besides that, she had on dirty jeans and an old sweater. Her mother apologized for her clothes, but she said she couldn't do anything with Jenny lately, especially since she's had taking into biting. What does she bite? I asked, thinking about furniture, toys, stuff like that. She bites people, Jenny's mother said. But you don't have to worry about it unless your teeth go through the skin. Otherwise, it's perfectly safe. I thought, poor Fudgy. He can't even bite since he has not got any top front teeth. I looked at Jenny. She seemed innocent. It was hard to believe she was a vampire. Sam was the last one. He carried a big present in for Fudgy, and he was crying. It's just the stage he's going through, his mother's playing. Everything scares him, especially birthday parties. But he'll be fine, won't you, Sam? Sam gargled something in his mother's leg and screamed, Take me home! Take me home! Somehow, Sam's mother untangled herself from Sam's grip and left. So at 5 after 1, we were ready to begin. We had an eater, a biter, and a crier. I thought the 2:30 would never come. I also thought my mother was slightly crazy for dreaming up this party in the first place. Doesn't Fudge have any normal friends? I whispered. There's nothing wrong with Fudgy's friends, Mother whispered back. All small children are like that. Grandma got them seated around the table. She put a party hat on each kid, Sam screamed, "Get it off! Get it off!" But the others wore their hats and didn't complain. My mother snapped a picture and with her new camera. Then Grandma turned off the lights, and my mother lit the candles for Fudgy's cake. It had chocolate frosting with big yellow roses. I led the singing, "Happy Birthday." My mother carried the cake across the kitchen to the party table and set it down in front of Fudge. Sam cried, "Too dark! Too dark!" Grandma had turned the lights on, kitchen lights, before Fudgy blew out the candles. When he was finished blowing, he reached out and grabbed a rose off the cake and he shoved it into his mouth. "Oh, Fudge," my mother said. "Look what you did." But Grandma said, "It's his birthday cake. He can do whatever he wants." So Fudge reached over and grabbed a second rose. I guess Fat Ralph couldn't stand seeing Fudge with those yellow roses because he grabbed one too. By that time, the cake looked pretty messy. My mother finally was coming to her senses, took the cake away, and sliced it up. Each kid got a Dixie cup and a small piece of cake with some milk. Jenny hollered, "Where's my rose? I want one too," because her slice of the birthday cake didn't happen to have one. My mother explained that the roses were only decorations, and there wasn't enough to go around. Jenny seemed to accept that, but when Grandma stood over to help open her Dixie, Jenny bit her right on the hand. "She bit me!" Grandma cried. "Did it break the skin?" my mother asked. "No, I don't think so," Grandmother said, checking. "Good, then it's nothing to worry about," my mother told her. Grandma went into the bathroom, put some medicine on it anyways. She wasn't taking any chances. Ralph was the first one to finish his food. "More, more, more," he sang, holding up his empty plate. "I don't think you should give him any more," I whispered to my mother. "Look at how fat he is now." "Oh, Peter, it's a party. Let him eat whatever he wants." "Okay," I said. "Why should I care how fat he gets?" My mother served Ralph a second piece of cake. He threw up right after he finished. Me and Grandma took the kids into the living room while my mother cleaned up the mess. Grandma told Fudge he could open his presents while his friends watched. Jenny brought him a musical Jack-in-the-Box. When you turn the handle around, it plays "Pop Goes Weasel." And then when you reach the part where it says "Pop," the top opens and a funny clown jumps out. Fudge loved it. He clapped his hands and laughed, but Sam started to scream, "No, no more, take it away!" He hid his face in his hands and wouldn't look up until Grandma promised to put the jack-o'-lantern back in the box in another room. Fudge opened Ralph's present next. It was a little wind-up car that ran all over the floor. I kind of liked it myself. So did Ralph, because he grabbed it away from Fudgy and said, "Mine!" "No," Fudge shouted, "mine!" When my mother heard the racket, she ran in front of the kitchen. She explained to both Ralph that he had bought the car for Fudge because it was his birthday, but Ralph wouldn't listen. I guess my mother was afraid he might throw up again, and this time on the living room rug, so she begged Fudgy to let Ralph play with the car for a few minutes. But Ralph kept screaming it was his car, so Fudge started to cry. Finally, my mother took the car away and said, "Let's see what Sam brought you." Fudge liked that idea. He forgot about the little car, and he ripped the paper ribbon off of Sam's package. It turned out to be a big picture dictionary, the same one the Yarbies bought me a couple of months ago. Fudge got mad when he saw it. "No!" he yelled. "No more book!" He threw it across the room. "Fudge, that's terrible," my mother said. "You mustn't do that to that nice book." "No book," Fudge said. Sam cried, He doesn't like my present. I want to go home. Grandma tried to comfort Sam. While my mother picked up the book, she gathered the wrapping paper and the ribbons and the cards together. Fudge didn't even look at any of the birthday cards. Oh, well, he can't read anyway, so I guess it doesn't make any difference. "Peter," my mother said, "let's start the games. Now, quick." I checked the time. I hoped this party was almost over, but no, oh no, it was only 1:30. Still an hour to go. I went into my room, where I had blown up a lot of balloons. My mother had a party book. It says 3-year-olds like to dance around with balloons. When I got back into the living room, my mom started the record player and handed each kid a balloon, but they stood there looking at me. Thought either this guy who wrote that party book is crazy as I am. Show them how to dance, Peter, my mother said. Take a balloon and demonstrate. I felt like the world's greatest living fools dancing around with a balloon, but it worked. As soon as the kids saw me doing it, they started dancing too. And then my mother, and the more they danced, the more they liked it, until Jenny's balloon popped. That nearly scared Sam right out of his mind. He started yelling and crying. Fortunately, I had blown up 24 balloons. I was hoping they'd dance around for the rest of the afternoon. Fudge got the idea of jumping up and down on the furniture, and the others liked it too. So instead of dancing with their balloons, that's what they did. And soon they were running from room to room, yelling and laughing and having a great time. Then the doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Ritter. She lives in the apartment right under us. She wanted to know what was going on. She said it sounded like the ceiling was about to crash and on her any second. My mother explained that Fudge was having a little birthday party, and would she like to stay for a piece of cake. Sometimes my mother is really clever. So Grandma entertained Mrs. Rutter in the kitchen while Fudge and his buddies jumped up and down on the new bed. It was delivered this morning. Fudge hasn't even slept in it yet. So naturally, when my mother found out that what they were up to, she was mad. Stop it right now, she said. Now, new bed. Big boy, Fudge told her. Was he proud? You won't have a new big boy bed for long if you don't stop jumping on it, my mother told him. I know. Let's all sit down on the floor and hear a nice story. My mother selected a picture book from Fudgy's bookshelf. I heard that one, said Jenny when she saw the cover. Oh, all right, my mother told her. Let's hear this one. She held up another book. I heard that one too, Jenny said. I think my mother was starting to lose her patience, but she chose a third book and said, we'll enjoy this one even if you know it by heart. And even if we do know all it by heart, can still say it together. And that's just what Jenny did. When my mother skipped a page by mistake, Jenny was right there to remind her. If you ask me, my mother felt like biting Jenny by that time. When the story was over, it was 2:00, and Ralph had sound asleep on the floor. My mother told me to put him up on Fudgy's new bed while she took the rest of the children back to the living room. I tried, but I couldn't lift Ralph. He must weigh a ton. So I left him sleeping on Fudge's floor and closed the door so he couldn't hear any noise. On my way back to the living room, I wished the others would fall asleep too. Peter, my mother suggested, why don't you show them Dribble? Mom, Dribble's my pet. You don't go around using a pet to entertain a bunch of little kids. Didn't my mother know that? Please, Peter, my mom said. We've still got a half an hour left. I don't know what to do with them anymore. Dribble, Fudge hollered. Dribble, Dribble, Dribble! I guess Sam and Jenny liked that way that sounded because they all started shouting, Dribble, Dribble, Dribble! And even though they didn't even know what they were talking about, all right, I said, I'll show you Dribble, but you've got to promise to be very quiet. You mustn't make a sound. You will scare him, okay? They all said okay. My mother went into the kitchen to chat with Grandma and Mrs. Rutter. I went to my room to come back carrying Dribble in his bowl. I put my finger over my lips to remind my Fudge and his friends to be quiet. It worked. At first, nobody said a word. I put Dribble down on the table. Fudge and Sam and Jenny stood over the bowl. Oh, turtle, Jenny said. Yes, Dribble's a turtle, my turtle, I said in a soft voice. See? See? Fudge whispered. They all can see, I told Fudge. Nice turtle, said Sam. Wonder why he wasn't afraid this time. What does Dribble do? Jenny asked. Do? He doesn't do anything special, I said. He's a turtle. He does turtle things. Like what? Jenny asked. Like, what is it with this kid anyways? Well, I said, he swims around a little and he steps on the rock and he eats. Does he make? Jenny asked. Make, I said. Make a tinkle. Oh, that. Well, I'm sure he guessed so. Jenny laughed. So did Sam and Fudge. I make tinkles too. Want to see? Jenny asked. No, I said. See, Fudge laughed, pointing to Jenny. Jenny had a big smile on his face. Next thing I knew, there was a puddle on the rug. Mom! I hollered. Come quick! My mother dashed into the kitchen. What, Peter? What is it? Just look at what Jenny did, I said. What is that? My mother asked, eyeing a puddle. She made on the floor, I said. On purpose. Oh, Jenny, my mother cried. You didn't. Did too, Jenny said. Oh, that's very naughty, my mother told her. You come with me. She scooped Jenny up and carried her into the bathroom. After that, my mother mopped up the puddle. Finally, the doorbell rang. It was 2:30, and the party was over. I could hardly believe it. It was beginning to think it would never end. First, Ralph's mother came and had to wake him to get him out of the apartment. I guess she couldn't even carry him. Next, Jenny's mother came. Mom gave her Jenny's wet pants in a baggie. That was all she had to do. Jenny's mom was plenty embarrassed. Sam's mother came last, but he didn't want to go home now. He wanted to be. He was used to us. I guess he liked us, and he cried, "More party, more!" Another time, my mother said, dragging him out of our apartment by the arm. My mother flopped down on the chair. Grandma brought in 2 aspirins and a glass of water. Here, dear, she said. Maybe these will help. My mother swallowed the pills. She held her head. 3 is a kind of young for a party, I told my mother. Peter Warren Hatcher. My mother began. Yes, I asked. You are absolutely right. I flopped down next to my mother. She put her arm around me. We both watched Fudge work on his new Jack-in-the-Box. Later, when my father came home, he said, How did Fudge's party go? My mother and I looked at each other, and we laughed.